In a ruined city, devastation stretches as far as the eye can see. A figure leaps from a crumbling building, triggering a massive explosion upon impact. A streak of energy surges through the air, tearing apart everything in its path as it races toward a lone man. With a fierce yell, he propels himself forward, preparing to counterattack. Calling upon his ultimate technique, Meteor Break, he unleashes a cataclysmic strike that shakes the entire city, leveling the remaining structures. However, as the dust settles, his expression shifts to disbelief. Standing unscathed before him is a young man who smirks, unimpressed. The young man taunts Hyun, questioning if that was truly his best. Though Hyun has given his all, the young man nonchalantly declares it his turn to play. His sword begins to glow, and with effortless precision, he delivers a decisive blow that strikes Hyun directly. This is the story of a hero cast out by his own team. A time came when the world was plunged into chaos. Plants and animals transformed into monstrous beings, and invaders emerged from dimensions unknown. Civilization crumbled under the weight of destruction, leaving humanity to fend for itself. In the midst of this turmoil, a helpless young man lies on the ground, crying out as a monstrous creature closes in. Just as the beast lunges, a figure flashes past. A split second later, the creature collapses, cleaved in two. Before its lifeless body stands a swordsman, his weapon radiating a dense aura of power. Over time, groups of exceptional individuals banded together to fight back. Among them was a renowned guild, home to powerful warriors. Before them loomed a monstrous foe, the notorious area boss, Guada. The beast wasted no time attacking, forcing the heroes into action. One warrior surged forward, managing to block a devastating strike, though the impact reverberated through the battlefield. Gritting his teeth, he cursed under his breath. Why was this creature so overwhelmingly strong? This man, a tanker from the Karo Guild, was named Hwang. As he struggled to hold back one of the beast's massive axes, he noticed the second one coming straight for him. Realizing he had no time to react, his heart pounded. At that moment, another figure intervened, blocking the fatal blow. Hwang, shaken but standing firm, recognized his savior, Yu Jihan, a support member of the same guild. Without missing a beat, Jihan shouted for the mage to act. Already prepared, she chanted her incantation, summoning an immense surge of power. The boss noticed the impending attack but was too late to react. The mage's staff glowed brightly before unleashing a torrent of energy. "Blazing thunder!" she cried. A bolt of lightning crashed onto the monster, detonating the area in a thunderous explosion. As the dust settled, she smirked, asking if anyone doubted her power. This was Imseum, a formidable mage of the Karo Guild. With a smug tone, she declared that there was no way the creature could have survived her spell. But to her horror, the boss remained standing, now even more enraged. With a deafening roar, it turned its fury upon her. Panic gripped her as she realized the monster was still alive. Just before the creature's attack could reach her, Jihan intervened once more, pulling her to safety. Staring at the beast, he processed the grim reality. The spell had barely phased it. However, the brief delay had given another fighter enough time to act. Lee Mia, the ace damage dealer from the Queiroz Guild, was now in position. With breathtaking speed, she launched forward, executing her quick slash technique. Her blade danced through the air, striking the monster multiple times. The beast howled in agony, falling to its knees. Yet even after her onslaught, it refused to die. Mia remained composed, raising a single finger upward. Above them, Yunta was descending at full speed. His final attack pierced straight through the monster, triggering another explosion that engulfed the battlefield. This time, as the dust cleared, the boss lay motionless. The battle was over. The heroes of the Queiroz Guild, ranked as the strongest, stood victorious. Huntai, their leader, declared the dungeon conquered. Cheers erupted among the guild members, but Jihan remained silent. As he watched their celebration, a bitter thought crossed his mind. He had once been a founding member of this very guild. Amidst the battlefield's wreckage, Jihan found himself standing before Huntai, who casually sat atop the defeated monsters. Without warning, Huntai spoke. Jihan was expelled from the guild. The words struck like a blade. Stunned, Jihan struggled to comprehend. Rain began to fall as he asked for an explanation, but none came. Left with no choice, he gathered his belongings and walked away alone. Not long after, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, a transaction notification, a transfer of 10 million ons. At the current exchange rate on September 24, 2024, that equated to approximately 41,073. Staring at the paltry sum, Jihan clenched his fists. 7 years of relentless effort, and this was all he received in return. His mind replayed their cruel words. Hang had mocked him, questioning his contributions. Seum had dismissed him as replaceable, claiming even a rookie could do his job with minimal training. Mia had sneered, branding him weak. And Huntai, the leader himself, had declared he was nothing but useless trash. With the rain pouring down, Jihan gazed up at the sky. For what purpose had he remained in the Queros Guild? Why had he endured it all? As his thoughts spiraled, he murmured to himself. The story of Hero John had come to an end. Jihan's eye begins to glow as he refuses to accept defeat. Strange lines of energy appear around him, his sampling ability, which activates unpredictably in special circumstances. After being cast out from the Queros Guild, Jihan spent a week searching for a new place to belong. Eventually, he came across the Fun Guild. As he stared at his computer screen, he was taken aback by what he saw. Suddenly, messages appeared before his eyes, calculating that if he joined, the Fun Guild had a 99% chance of growing into a major power. His ability allowed him to perceive probabilities. Clenching his fists, he recalled the faces of those who humiliated him and resolved to surpass them all with his newfound power. Late one night, in a different house, a young woman muttered in frustration as the power went out just as she was about to eat her cup noodles. Without warning, Jihan burst through her door. Startled, she screamed, demanding to know who he was. Gasping for breath, drenched in sweat, Jihan weakly announced his intention to join the Fun Guild. The woman, thoroughly confused, tried to question him, but Jihan, utterly exhausted, collapsed to the floor. Panicked, she rushed to his side, calling his name and checking if he was all right. Sometime later, Jihan awoke with a jolt. The woman sat beside him, relieved, and informed him that he had been unconscious for an hour. Introducing herself as Kin Seo, the master of the Fun Guild, she then asked if his name was Jihan. With a pounding headache, he hesitantly asked how she knew. Holding up his identification document, she smirked. Seo then inquired whether he had been a member of the Queros Guild, wondering why someone from such a prestigious group would want to join a small guild like hers. Lowering his gaze, Jihan promised to explain everything. After hearing his story, Seo clapped her hands, signaling her understanding. However, she remained puzzled. Given his experience, Jihan could easily join a more renowned guild. Why choose hers? He hesitated, debating whether she would believe the truth about his mysterious ability. Noticing his silence, Seo concluded that he had no solid answer. Deciding to share something personal first, she removed her headphones, revealing her pointed ears. She declared that she was a half-elf, the daughter of an elf, and a human. Jihan's eyes widened in shock. Beads of sweat formed on his forehead as he stammered, asking what a half-elf was. Seo explained that, after countless dimensional invasions, humanity had learned of many new species, including elves. However, these elves had once massacred humans, and their existence remained controversial. With a solemn expression, she asked what Jihan thought about her lineage and whether he still wished to join the Fun Guild. Silence hung between them. Then Jihan smirked. He pointed out that her hands had been trembling the entire time. She had been trying to intimidate him, but she was nervous. Caught off guard, Seo flinched. Jihan then reassured her that he had no prejudice against elves. He had encountered them before and saw no difference between them and humans. His words left Seo stunned. She blushed slightly as he continued, stating that discriminating against others based on their origins was something only fools did. Overwhelmed by his unexpected response, Seo finally smiled. Seo then told him she would consider his request and get back to him later. Jihan nodded, expressing his gratitude. Just as he was about to leave, a strange glow filled the room. Both of them turned towards Seo's staff, which rested on the table. Confusion flashed across her face. Her staff, imbued with the energy of Pleuron, was reacting to something. The glow intensified, and suddenly, the staff lifted into the air. Sio's heart pounded as a name came to her mind: Sylph. For over 12 years, the spirit had remained dormant. Why was it awakening now? Before she could intervene, the glowing light surged toward Jihan. She gasped, realization dawning. Sylph was forming a contract. A rare and legendary event was unfolding before her very eyes. Racing forward in an attempt to stop it, she was thrown back as an enormous wave of energy erupted, piercing the sky. The brilliance of the light could be seen from miles away. When the light faded, Sio lay on the ground, staring in disbelief. Before her stood Jihan, a powerful energy radiating from his palm. Looking up at him, she could hardly process what had happened. Was it possible? Had Sylph chosen a human? Jihan, the outcast hero from one of the world's greatest guilds, had just obtained one of the rarest and most powerful classes in existence. He clenched his fist, feeling the newfound energy coursing through him. His class had changed. He was now a spiritualist. Spiritualists were unique heroes, individuals who formed contracts with extraordinary beings to harness their power. Only a handful existed worldwide, each wielding immense strength. Among them were Luca Harrison, the Mist Spiritualist, Malo Sweep, the Sea Spiritualist, and Abu Bakar, the Sand Spiritualist. These irregular figures possessed strength rivaling entire guilds. And now a new force had emerged: Jihan, the Wind Spiritualist. Still at the Fun Guild headquarters, Jihan questions whether he truly made a contract with a spirit. Sio confirms this, explaining that Sylph is the spirit of the wind and, more significantly, the spirit of her late mother. This revelation leaves Jihan stunned, and he immediately insists that he must return it. He frantically asks if there's a way to cancel the contract, but Sio shakes her head, stating that once a spirit chooses its wielder, the bond is nearly impossible to break. She explains that the contract will remain intact until the wielder's death. Jihan is left speechless, uncertain of what to do next. Sio, noticing his hesitation, questions his reluctance. Standing up, she reminds him that he has already passed the guild's test, so there's no reason to back out now. Jihan quickly reassures her that he isn't planning to run away, emphasizing that there's no other guild he would consider joining besides Fun. Sio, slightly flustered, remarks that he certainly has a good sense for such matters. With a small smile, she offers to teach him how to wield the spirit of the wind properly. Eager to put his new abilities to the test, Jihan suggests they head to the monster area, AM, for training. This designated region is known for being inhabited by creatures ranked from Class 5 to Class 1, with the latter being the most formidable. As they make their way toward the training grounds, Jihan contemplates that the AM located in Bukon is ranked as a level CCO, making it a suitable place to test his newfound powers. Noticing Sio's uneasy expression, he asks if something is wrong. She hesitates before admitting that this is her first time venturing into a monster area since her time at the Hero Training Academy. Jihan is taken aback by this revelation and asks why she didn't mention it earlier. Embarrassed, Sio confesses that she didn't want to appear inexperienced, especially as the guild leader. Jihan reassures her, saying it's not a problem, and that he will take the lead. As they step beyond the protective barrier, the destruction surrounding them becomes evident. Jihan turns to Sio and asks what type of monsters they should expect. She takes a moment to recall before explaining that the primary threat in this area is the cockatrice. Jihan inquires about the nature of this creature, and Sio recounts an incident from 2 weeks ago in which a truck transporting chicks overturned, resulting in a mutation that led to the birth of these monsters. Drawing his sword, Jihan remains unfazed, stating that these creatures will serve as decent opponents for his training. He mentally prepares himself, recognizing that in a two-person party, he must take on the roles of both tanker and damage dealer. Suddenly, Sio senses something and urgently warns Jihan to look behind an abandoned car. As they shift their gaze, they spot a cockatrice feasting on a human corpse. The creature locks eyes with them, its aggression rising. Both tense up at the grisly scene. Without hesitation, Jihan orders Sio to support him from the rear. The monster gathers energy and launches itself toward them. Anticipating the attack, Jihan braces himself and successfully blocks the strike with his sword. Grinning, he calls for Seo to act. She had already begun chanting her spell, carefully aiming before unleashing a wind-based projectile that splits into multiple arrows, striking the creature and triggering an explosion. The cockatrice is instantly defeated. Impressed, Jihan turns to Seo, praising her prowess. Seo, with a confident smirk, reveals that despite appearances, she graduated among the top students at the academy. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted when a shadow moves behind the wrecked cars. Seo senses another presence and shouts for Jihan to turn around, but before he can react, 3 more monsters are already lunging toward them. Jihan's sampling ability instinctively activates, allowing him to analyze the battlefield in real time. A system notification flashes before him, indicating an 82% probability of evasion if he crouches immediately. Trusting his instincts, he swiftly ducks, narrowly avoiding the attack. Channeling his energy, he accelerates forward, slashing through the monsters in a blur. Within moments, the creatures collapse, lifeless. Seo watches in shock, unable to comprehend how Jihan eliminated them so effortlessly. She questions whether it's even possible for someone who awakened his abilities just a day ago to possess such overwhelming strength. Observing him, she mutters to herself, wondering what kind of force Jihan has become. Jihan sheathes his sword and declares that the real fight is just beginning. As he prepares to continue, Seo rushes to assist him. However, just as she moves, Jihan's ability activates on its own, warning him of an impending threat. He urgently shouts for Seo to be cautious. Before she can react, a massive monster emerges, its powerful strike aimed directly at her. The ground shatters upon impact, sending debris flying, but Jihan reaches her just in time, saving her from what could have been a fatal blow. Jihan places Seo on the ground and asks if she's okay. Still slightly frightened, she replies that she's fine, but wonders why a monster like that appeared in a level 5 area. The protagonist observes the creature and suspects it might be a variant. Analyzing it, he sees that he only has a 12% chance of winning. He then asks Seo if she can keep up with the monster's movements. Still confused, she admits that she can barely follow. Without hesitation, Jihan leaps toward the beast, convinced that this is all he needs. The monster also prepares to attack. Both charge at each other, and the protagonist shouts for Seo to attack now. Seo casts her slow wind magic, generating several energy ropes around the monster, causing it to miss its attack. Seizing the opportunity, Jihan continues advancing. However, at the last second, the creature manages to break free from the spell. Still, the protagonist doesn't hesitate and keeps attacking, throwing himself straight into the monster's mouth. With a determined gaze, he recalls Hyun Tai's words when he called him useless trash. That anger begins to consume him. The monster traps Jihan in its mouth, but everything was already mapped out. Using his terrifying speed, the protagonist unleashes a flurry of rapid slashes, tearing the creature into pieces effortlessly. In an instant, the monster is completely destroyed, and Jihan collapses to the ground. From the top of a nearby building, someone watches the scene in shock. Smirking, he mutters that this means there's now another spiritualist in Korea. His name is Yunda, the Earth Spiritualist. Meanwhile, in the Level 2 monster area of Hwanggang, in Guido, the battlefield is in ruins. From beneath the rubble, noises start to rise, and the ground trembles. Monsters begin to emerge and gather. Whoa. Hwang releases his power and shouts for them to come at him. Instantly, the creatures attack, but he activates his aggro ability, managing to hold them off. As he struggles to maintain his defense, he shouts for Seom to act quickly since he can't hold them off for long. She replies that she knows and begins channeling her energy, activating her chain lightning spell. Several bolts of lightning strike the monsters, triggering a massive explosion. As the smoke clears, the creatures have been completely wiped out. Seom looks at the aftermath and starts laughing, saying she never imagined causing such chaos over such weak creatures. Hwang, irritated, scolds her, saying he almost got caught in her attack. Seom keeps laughing and tells him that's why she told him to lose some weight. Then she suggests they leave, but Hwang notices something strange. Suddenly, one of the monsters emerges from the dust, charging at Siam. Huang tries to warn her, but she barely has time to turn around, shocked that one of them is still alive. With no time to react, she screams for Jihan to protect her, only to realize he's no longer there. The monster keeps advancing, and suddenly, a beam of light flashes through, slicing the creature in half. At the last second, Hunter intervenes, saving her. Now, the last of the monsters has finally been slain. As they rest, Siam sighs and comments on how tough the fight was. Huang, looking serious, says that this time was different and wonders if they were variants. However, Siam dismisses the idea, saying the monsters didn't seem unusual. Hunter cuts in sharply, stating that those monsters were nothing more than ordinary giant worms. Frustrated, he clenches his fist and demands to know why they were afraid of such creatures. He smashes another monster behind him, questioning when they became so weak. The others try to explain, but another figure appears. When they turn to look, they are shocked. Mia stands before them, covered in monster blood, her face serious and her eyes glowing red. With a firm voice, she announces that Zone 2 has been fully cleared. Hunte glares at her, reminding her that he told her not to act on her own since there was no one else there to protect her. Mia replies coldly that she already knows. Huang, looking down at the ground, mutters if all of this happened just because they sent Jihan away. Yunta, furious, shouts that it's impossible. He insists that even if Jihan were still there, he would remain useless. Yunt reinforces the idea, saying they don't need someone like him. Meanwhile, in another monster zone, the protagonist is unleashing his power. Scattered around him lie the severed remains of multiple creatures. Seo watches in awe, realizing that Jihan has defeated a variant on his own. She wonders what kind of person he has become. Nearby, another observer is witnessing the scene, unable to believe that just the two of them managed to take down a variant. Smirking, he mutters that he's just found a gold mine. Seo rushes over to Jihan and asks if he's hurt. Suddenly, the protagonist collapses. She catches him just in time and, worried, asks if he's okay. With a weak voice, he looks at her and whispers, "They will take everything." Despite his injuries, he dismisses the rarity of variants, pointing out that they can still make a good profit by selling the rest of the monster's body. Seo, frustrated, scolds him for being so reckless, saying she was extremely worried about him. Yet all he seems to care about is money. As they assess their situation, she notes that there's far too much material for just the two of them to transport. Jihan agrees, acknowledging the sheer quantity. Out of nowhere, a young man appears, offering his assistance. He introduces himself as Saim, a representative of Mongdong, a company specializing in monster processing. Seo, slightly puzzled, asks what exactly a monster processing company does. Jihan explains that such businesses handle the extraction and resale of monster byproducts. Looking at Saim, the protagonist questions why a businessman like him would be in such a dangerous area. Saim explains that since his company is still in its early stages, he has no choice but to take risks to keep it afloat. He then proposes that they allow Mongdong to handle the disassembly and processing of the monster's remains. Seo is relieved and comments that his arrival couldn't have been more timely. She immediately asks if they can leave everything in his hands. However, Jihan remains cautious, observing Saim closely, as something about him feels off. Saim puts on a pair of gloves and begins inspecting the remains. He notes that the cuts are exceptionally precise and clean, indicating high-quality work. He emphasizes that with such craftsmanship, the materials will fetch an excellent price. Seo is thrilled, exclaiming that with this money, they'll finally be able to afford a new office. Saim grins to himself, thinking that's right. He'll let them have the leftovers, but the true prize belongs to him, a magic crystal, something exclusive to variants. If he plays this right, he could make a fortune. Before anyone can react, the ground beneath Saim begins to tremble, and stones rise into the air. Alarmed, the group demands to know what's happening. Panic-stricken, Saim starts pleading for his life, frantically saying he'll return the magic crystal. A voice suddenly cuts through the chaos, calling businessmen like him nothing but thieves. The voice demands to know if Saim really had the audacity to steal something that didn't belong to him. Seo's heart pounds as she recognizes the figure approaching. Doha. He exudes an overwhelming presence, his power radiating around him. Fixing his gaze on Saeem, Doha coldly asks if he truly believed he could keep the crystal. Seo, shocked, realizes that this man is none other than Doha, a first-class hero. She wonders what the leader of the Diz Guild is doing in such a place. Jihan grabs the crystal, declaring that it belongs to his guild. He then turns to Doha, questioning whether a first-class hero would stoop to robbing them. Doha simply smirks and states that, according to the association's orders, he was meant to claim the variant himself. Jihan's expression shifts, and without hesitation he activates his ability, analyzing the probability of victory. The result stuns him. His chance of winning is absolute zero. Doha shakes his head and tells Jihan that he's got it all wrong. In the blink of an eye, he vanishes. Jihan barely has time to react before Doha reappears right behind him. Without warning, Doha seizes Jihan by the head, slamming his face forcefully into the ground, shattering the terrain upon impact. Holding him down, Doha calmly warns that this is just a lesson, calling Jihan his apprentice. Saeem, still shaken, curses under his breath, wondering why he had to run into Doha of all people. As the leader of Diz, one of Korea's top 5 guilds, Doha is infamous. He's the world's only Earth spiritualist, a transcendent warrior known as the Earth Dragon. Seo quickly raises her staff, aiming at Doha, demanding that he release Jihan. But Doha remains unfazed, warning her that if she moves recklessly, Jihan's life will end right there. Seo's hands tremble as she realizes he isn't bluffing. Beneath Doha's grip, Jihan begins to channel his power, declaring that the only person dying today will be Doha. He unleashes his ability, Wind Breath Night, generating a powerful surge of energy that hurls Doha far into the distance. As he's thrown back, Doha's mind races. How did Jihan manage that while being completely pinned down? Crashing into a nearby rock, Doha quickly assesses the situation. He realizes that Jihan must have summoned an element the moment he was slammed into the ground, cushioning the blow and allowing him to strike back at the perfect moment. Impressed, Doha acknowledges that Jihan is far more capable than he initially thought. However, Jihan isn't celebrating. His body is drenched in sweat, his breathing ragged. A system notification appears before his eyes, warning that excessive use of elemental magic has raised his probability of death to 95%. Looking at Doha, he grimly acknowledges that even after using everything he had, his attack left no mark. This is the strength of a first-class hero. Doha begins to advance once more, an overwhelming aura radiating from him, making it clear. The fight is far from over. As Doha walks toward the protagonist, the ground cracks and crumbles beneath each step. Once again, he calls Jihan his apprentice and remarks that they've already exchanged blows, so it's time to start the second round of their battle. However, the protagonist surprises him by tossing the magic crystal towards Doha and raising his hands in surrender. Irritated, Doha asks why Jihan is giving up so easily. Jihan calmly explains that Doha's target is the crystal, and that he's no longer interested in fighting. He adds that, according to the Hero's Law, Article 38, Paragraph 9, Doha can't violate the surrender decree. Doha, slightly annoyed, mutters that he only wanted to have some fun. His attention is drawn to a sound in the distance, and he looks up to see several helicopters approaching. He sighs, saying that it's unfortunate they arrived just in time, spoiling his enjoyment. Seo, puzzled, asks if those helicopters belong to the association. From inside one of the helicopters, a woman shouts at Doha, asking why he was acting on his own. Doha holds up the crystal, saying that he's finished his mission and there's no need for her to nag him. As the helicopter lands, he starts to board but pauses, turning back to the protagonist. He says they'll settle who the real winner is later and asks for his name. The protagonist introduces himself as Eujian from the Fun Guild. Doha looks surprised at the guild's name and tells him to take the Class 4 promotion test, assuring him he'll personally recommend him. Confused, Jihan asks why he's doing this. Doha laughs, saying it's simply because he feels like it. Once inside the helicopter, Doha tells the woman that she heard his request, so she should prepare a recommendation letter for Jihan and Seo. The woman, worried, points out that the test is only 2 days away, and they haven't even been verified as a guild yet. But just as she's about to continue, she spots something that shocks her. Looking at Doha's arm, she notices it's injured. She wonders how he could have been hurt, but she can't fathom anyone strong enough to do that to him. Doha laughs again, saying that it was incredibly fun. Afterward, Jihan and Seo return to the Fun Guild's headquarters, where they find Saeem kneeling and apologizing. Jihan dismisses his apology, saying it's enough for now and that it's time for a punishment. Saeem panics, begging for a chance to explain. He admits he overheard their earlier conversation and asks if Jihan really intends to participate in the Class 4 promotion test. Saeem explains that the test is in just 2 days and they need to immediately upgrade their equipment if they want to stand a chance. Confused, Jihan asks why. Saeem explains that Jihan's sword is near the end of its durability, and the same goes for all their gear. Going into the test in such a condition would be disastrous. Saeem pats his chest confidently and offers to take them to a workshop where they can fix everything up. He adds that after that, they can choose whether to beat him up or not. Jihan and Seo exchange looks and agree, asking Saeem to take them there. They follow him to the workshop. Upon arriving, Saeem opens the door and enters first. Jihan looks around and is surprised by how empty it is. Seo, growing irritated, asks Saeem if this is just another of his pranks. Saeem reassures her with a smile and says no, it's not, and we'll see it in the next episode. Remember to subscribe and leave a like.